Good afternoon. It's Wednesday, the 16th of November. I'm Laura Cornfield, and this is IBA News broadcasting live from Jerusalem. A coalition crisis appears to have been averted after a controversial bill aimed at legalizing the Omona outpost settlement passed in a preliminary vote in the Knesset this afternoon. But residents from communities in Samaria are hoping a deal can be worked out that will circumvent the High Court of Justice's ruling that the illegal houses in Omona must be evacuated and demolished next month. Israel's Attorney General Avichai Mendelblit opposes the bill, saying he will struggle to defend it in the international arena as well as in the Supreme Court. More from IBA's Ari O'Sullivan.
Backroom wheeling and dealing saw the passing of the so-called regulation bill in the Knesset a short while ago, but the fate of the Omona outpost still remains unclear. The Jewish Home Party was pushing through the bill in order to retroactively save the Omona outpost, which the court has ruled was built on Palestinian-owned land and must be evacuated and demolished by the end of the year. Education Minister Naftali Bennett, the head of the Jewish Home Party, has presented the bill for a preliminary reading. But behind-the-scenes negotiations were worked out that allowed the Kulanu MKs to vote in favor, despite party head Finance Minister Moshe Kahlon's announcement yesterday that he would not support any law that went contrary to the spirit of the Supreme Court. According to reports, a deal was reached that would see the bill frozen in a committee despite its preliminary approval today. Outside the Prime Minister's office, residents of Ofra and Omona protested in the hope of pressuring the government to find a way to keep their homes.
When Omona was built, there was no question. No one was saying, hey, Mr. So-and-so, this is his property and he lives here. What took them all these years all of a sudden? And if you give back Omona, they're going to say, hey, you know what? Or those 9 homes in Ofra, there's another 2 homes on another street that, you know, we found someone somewhere who's now living in, maybe in Chicago today. And
you think it'll be a snowball effect?
I know a snowball, but they'll start digging it up from all over.
I feel that, number one, we have to be proud that this is our country. We don't have to be embarrassed that this is a country, and therefore we have the right to stay here. Number two, I think that's the message that I think we need to project worldwide. The message that I think we need to project internally is that all of us Israelis are in this together, and we have to build the country together. Whether we're building Tel Aviv or Jerusalem, Beit El or Ofra, we have to have the same principles. And sometimes things go wrong, sometimes even governments make mistakes. In this particular case, houses were built with permission, and afterwards retroactively they found that it was a mistake. Things like this have happened exactly elsewhere in the country, and agreements have been reached. Make sure that the people who are affected on all sides aren't hurt, but there's no need to go to extremes.
The Haredi parties have torpedoed a bill to ban mosques from using loudspeakers to announce the call to prayer. The so-called Muazzin bill was approved by the Ministerial Committee for Legislation on Sunday, but is now frozen owing to an appeal by the Health Minister Yaakov Litzman of United Torah Judaism. Together with Shas, the ultra-Orthodox legislators fear the bill would set a precedent that could also muffle the Friday night siren, announcing the start of Shabbat. The minister's appeal means the bill will return to the cabinet instead of progressing to a first reading in the Knesset. Separately, Jordan's Undersecretary for Islamic Affairs and the Waqf objected to any changes to Jerusalem by Israel as an occupier, vowing that the 5-time-a-day call to prayer would sound from the El Aqsa Mosque forever. The Prime Minister's personal lawyer is also representing the German shipyard that's manufacturing 3 submarines that Israel will buy from Germany at a cost of 1.5 billion euros. IBA's Eilon Eslin-Levy has this report.
The allegations were raised in a Channel 10 expose last night, which found Netanyahu's personal attorney, David Shomron, is also acting for businessman Mickey Gano, the Israel representative of the German shipyard. According to the report, Shomron and Gano tried to persuade the authorities to allow the submarine's maintenance to be performed by a private company to be established by Gano and not by the Israeli Navy. Last week, it emerged the Prime Minister had authorized the purchase of 3 submarines from Germany against the IDF's objections. Then Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon had initially torpedoed the deal on the grounds that it did not fit into the IDF's multi-year plan. Responding, attorney David Shomron denied having ever discussed the matter with the Prime Minister or any state authorities. The Prime Minister concurred that he had never discussed the submarines with his attorney and also denied knowledge of links between his attorney and Gannot. The opposition Zionist Union, meanwhile, retorted that the Prime Minister's confusion is a sign that he has spent too long in power and said it gets the impression that everything the Prime Minister touches is clouded by corruption.
The Foreign Ministry has announced the appointment of diplomat Eitan Ne'eh to serve as Israel's ambassador to Turkey, the first Israeli envoy to the country in years, since ties between Ankara and Jerusalem deteriorated following the May 2010 Mavi Marmara incident. The announcement came just months after Turkey and Israel signed an agreement to restore ties between the two countries. Turkey also announced that Ambassador Kamal Okem will represent the country in Israel. Ne'eh joined the Foreign Ministry in 1991 and has specialized in Turkish affairs and was posted in Ankara in 1993, and from 1997 to 1999 served as Deputy Consul General at the Israeli Consulate in Chicago and also served as head of the Turkish, Greek, and Cyprus desk in the ministry in Jerusalem. Between the years 2001 to 2005, Ne'eh served in Azerbaijan and was the senior director of the National Security Council at the Diplomatic Secretariat in the Prime Minister's office. In 2013, he was deputy ambassador in London. Staying with Turkey, and Yuval Steinitz, Minister of National Infrastructure, Energy and Water Resources, said yesterday that teams from Israel and Turkey are discussing the laying of a gas pipeline between the two countries, and the talks are also underway to export gas to Egypt. Steinitz also revealed that Israel intended to open some 24 areas off its shores that would be designated for exploration in the search for oil and gas. He expressed hopes that talks with the Turkish Minister of Energy and Natural Resources would lead to an agreement and laying a pipeline by April next year. Such a pipeline could then link up to Europe, he said, noting talks are also underway with the EU Directorate General for the creation of such a pipeline. At a joint press conference in New Delhi yesterday with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and other senior Indian government officials, President Reuven Rivlin praised the 25 years of diplomatic ties between the two countries, describing them as making a difference. The two leaders witnessed the signing by representatives from both countries of cooperation agreements and memoranda of understanding in agriculture and water resources. Modi said he believed Rivlin's visit to India would give a crucial push to building new pillars in the partnership.
Mr. Prime Minister, Israel and India have changed history before, and it is time we do it again. We have growing cooperation in agriculture, in water, in solar power, in all of what you call the four-colored revolution, and many more areas as well. As we mark 25 years of our diplomatic relation, this is not just a partnership that we talk about. This is a partnership which is making a difference for Israelis and Indians in the water we drink, in the food we eat, in the technology we use, and many important areas of our lives.
The Army is reviewing a proposal to increase the number of female soldiers who serve in combat units, including the armored corps. At a hearing before the Knesset's Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee, Brigadier General Eran Shani, head of the Army's Human Resources and Planning Division, said the scope of positions that have opened to women in recent years has increased. He said the Army is also re-examining the possibility of integrating women into the armored corps. He noted that female soldiers serve as pilots in the Air Force, as well as in prestigious 669 Search and Rescue Unit, and also in the engineering corps, where they operate heavy machinery used during ground operations in enemy territory. Women also serve in combat roles in the Navy, Home Front Command, and Artillery Corps, as well as in the military police, as well as in the mixed-gender Caracal and Lions of Jordan battalions that have also seen an increased female presence. The Ariel Sharon training base complex in the Negev was officially dedicated yesterday by Prime Minister Netanyahu and Defense Minister Lieberman. Also known as the training camp space, or Ir Habadim, the complex is situated some 20 kilometers south of Beersheba and is part of the IDF's major relocation to the south. The Prime Minister forecast that Beersheba will soon be a city of 500,000 people, saying that it's already part of the center of the country, and praising the IDF's relocation and the expansion of the cyber sector for fulfilling the vision of David Ben-Gurion in regenerating the Negev. When fully operational, the 50 billion shekel base will be the largest in the country. The civil administration has recently approved a master plan for a Palestinian village in Area C. That's according to a report in the Palestinian Ma'an news agency, which says that the village of Tiakin near Jenin will now be able to obtain building permits for existing houses and new ones. The village lies in Area C in the 60% of the West Bank under full Israeli control. This comes in the wake of a recent Haaretz report, which revealed that the Israeli government had recently authorized further Palestinian construction in Area C as part of Defense Minister Lieberman's carrot and stick policy for stabilizing the security situation in the territories. The defense establishment plans to invest some 50 million shekels in expanding 2 crucial West Bank crossings that will improve the passage of Palestinians and enable heightened security. The crossings are the Kalandia checkpoint north of Jerusalem and Rachel's tomb outside Bethlehem, south of the capital. The move comes at the initiative of the Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman, who said earlier this year that conditions at the crossings that facilitate the entry of thousands of Palestinians each day must be improved to alleviate the crowded conditions and the suffering of the Palestinians who use them, as well as the Israelis manning them. Hezbollah sought to display its military prowess in a parade in the northern Syrian village of El Qusayr earlier this week. It was the first time Hezbollah held a parade inside Syria to mark Martyrs' Day. The choice of location represents a symbol of cooperation between the Shiite terrorist organization and the Syrian regime. 3 years ago, the town's inhabitants left after Hezbollah conquered the town, which has become an assembly point for its fighters and Syrian regime forces preparing to engage in battle with rebel groups. Tanks, heavy weapons, and armored units participated in the parade, as well as hundreds of Hezbollah gunmen who are fighting in Syria. Back here at home, a dispute between Israel's national carrier El Al and its pilots jeopardized additional flights abroad today, with delays on European flights forcing El Al to transfer passengers to other airlines. This after several flights were canceled this week at the last minute. The dispute between management and pilots was sparked by a new law scheduled to go into effect in May 2018, which is likely to affect the number of hours pilots fly per week. El Al also opposes pilots' demands for a pay raise. The 17th annual Jerusalem International Oud Festival is kicking off on the 17th of November and runs through the 26th. The 10-day event features modern and ancient musical genres inspired by traditions from all over the world and is hosted by the Confederation House in the capital. The festival presents original productions and special performances and welcomes an impressive variety of musicians from Israel and abroad. One of the highlights this year is Turkish performer Omer Faruk Tekbilik and his ensemble with special guest vocalist Israel's Yasmin Levy. That's the Oud Festival from next Thursday in the capital. In local money matters, shares were mixed on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, while the shekel was mixed in foreign currency trading. Here are the numbers. The IBA weather team says tomorrow will remain partly cloudy with no significant changes in the temperature. Here are the highs and lows at home and abroad. And that's all for today. Elon Aslan Levy will be back tomorrow. We leave you now with sights and sounds ahead of the 17th annual Jerusalem International Oud Festival that starts tomorrow.